May the words of our mouths, my mouth, and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. The parable of the Good Shepherd. One of the gifts that we have from the New Testament are all of the parables that Jesus used to teach us. A parable is a story of a time and a place with a series of divine characters that take place over and over and over again, and it's not limited by time and space. The parable of the Good Shepherd is an example of the ways that part of the human condition is an ongoing drama of a particular cast of characters. In the parable in today's gospel, Jesus introduces us to 4 characters. The Good Shepherd, clearly, that's the star of this divine drama, of the divine drama anyway. We know the shepherd because the shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He knows the sheep know him. We also know that the Good Shepherd leads his sheep to green pastures, still waters, and there's just a sense of peace and calm from the Good Shepherd. We also hear the story of the hired hand. Now, the hired hand has no skin in the game. They have discovered that the sheep are something that they have to take care of, but it's not something that they necessarily have buy-in for. The hired hand is self-serving. When the going gets tough, the hired hand is out the door. When the wolves show up, the hired hand goes for the door, and the sheep are on their own. Then there are the wolves. The wolves are focused on instinct and freedom, intelligent. They're a tight social order. Wolves are very instinctual, and they're necessary to create balance in the food chain. It's really easy to get into an idea that sheep are good, shepherds are good, wolves are bad. We don't need any wolves. The truth is, if all the wolves disappeared from our environment, we would be overrun by other species that are necessary. So wolves are all part of the important part of the divine drama. And we have the sheep, the innocent, the vulnerable, the somewhat concrete thinkers. They conform to the social norms. They are driven by what the group is doing, more so than their own independent viewpoints. Sheep are often fearful. They're prone to freeze or flee. They're easily led astray, and they can be susceptible. If the group is going, even if the group is going off a cliff, the sheep can often go off a cliff together because the group is going with them. These are the 4 primary characters in the gospel today. I want to give you an introduction to a couple others. There are a couple other animals in the kingdom that actually have a pretty big role in the divine drama that we all experience in the walk-around world. One is the coyote. The coyote is an adaptable trickster, playful, paradoxical. The coyote has the ability to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. The coyote interjects itself in the divine drama and helps us be confused about who the characters in the play are. And then there's one more. The shepherd has sheepdogs. Sheepdogs are guardians and protectors of the flock and of society. When they are grounded, they're focused and aware. When they're grounded and really aware of who their shepherd is and they follow the Good Shepherd, they're faithful, knowing, fun, and beyond measure will go out on the limb to find even the one lost sheep and bring it back. Ungrounded, sheepdogs can become very neurotic and destructive, actually. And if a sheepdog isn't following and isn't connected to a good shepherd, it can be a real problem for the sheepdog as well as for anybody else in their path. So as we take this characters, let's look a little bit at how the world views this metaphor as well, because the idea of shepherds and sheepdogs and sheep is really, and wolves, is really not just a religious connection. Did you know that Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman and Lauren Christensen in 2008 wrote a book on combat, and that the wolf-sheep-sheepdog metaphor is actually related very easily to the idea behind warrior theory. And the concept here is that there are wolves, there are sheep, and then there are sheepdogs, and that members of our military and warriors need to embrace and can see themselves as the sheepdog. There's only one problem with that, is that whatever uniform you're wearing identifies the sheepdogs and views the other uniform as being the wolves. They think the same way. The other side sees themselves as sheepdogs, and they see you as the wolves, hence the killing ensues. This whole idea is actually not just limited to the military either. On the website, theartofmanliness.com, there is a worldview that provides the roadmap to becoming a sheepdog, and this concept that masculinity should be worn in a way that you develop your sheepdogness. And part of this roadmap, it's got about 10 or 12 points on it, but basically, first you got to decide. You have to make that decision to be a sheepdog. Second, you need to accept the inevitable. There will be conflict. There will be wolves in the world, and you need to be prepared. So be a leader, train hard, mentally and physically, build resilience. Do a little self-work, develop intuition, develop capacity to love, morals, honesty, ethics, and be hyper-vigilant. That's all well and good. Got some moral development, moral behavior in there. Oh, that's really good. What's the problem? There's no shepherd. What happens to sheepdogs if sheepdogs don't have a shepherd? What happens if they're grounded? They become neurotic, destructive, and lost. Let it sink in for a minute. What does it mean to take all of those pieces of the metaphor and take the shepherd out, or leave the shepherd out? The world is missing an important role in this divine drama, and it's the shepherd. It's also ignoring the reality that there is always a coyote playing in the works, that no matter what we do, there is always an aspect and an element of trickery at work, offering us an opportunity to stray from the path that we're really called to be in. People are very curious animals. We are part of the animal kingdom. We often think that we're not. There's the animals and then they're us, but we're animals. And part of being an animal is that we are the only species to have a clear consciousness. We have the ability to choose. We have the ability to develop into any of these roles, depending upon our DNA and our life experiences. We are some balance between nature and nurture. And we can, at any given point in time, be the sheep, be the sheepdog. We can be the wolf. We can be the coyote. You know what we can't be? The shepherd. Because when we think we're the shepherd, we're being tricked by the coyote, which is one of the places where we take our downfall. All of the other animals in the kingdom are what they are. They may be on a continuum based on their conditions, but they are what they are. Sheep are predictable. Coyotes are predictable. Wolves are predictable. They're all predictable in the animal kingdom. Humans, we're not predictable. So how does the story play out? So I have a story that associates with this. 1996, I was called to a therapeutic riding program in the little town of Warm Springs, Georgia, population 408. It was one of the oldest therapeutic riding programs in the country, and it was named, appropriately so, the Good Shepherd Therapeutic Riding Program. It also had a children's home on it. There were 24 boys that were from alternatives to juvenile delinquency. It was functionally a group home. And I was asked to come. I had been there before, earlier on in my career, and I was asked to come back because the farm had been amazing for 25 years, and it had done some amazing things for people with physical disabilities, wildlife rehab, animal programs, you name it, it had done it. It had raised something like 500 children and kept them out of juvenile jails. It had taken a turn for the worse. The founding director somehow had gotten astray and gotten lost on his path. And as a result of that, there had been some inappropriate things happen. board removed him, and the farm was in disarray. The animals were sick, the children were a mess, and they actually called me and asked me if I would come in to close it. So I left my private practice, came in, this is now early 2000s, came in to work on it, and while I was there, I was open. I absolutely would come. I had a relationship with God. I understood the divine drama. I understood the roles in it and how it all played out. I wasn't quite sure about that whole Good Shepherd thing. I had met the coyotes and I had met the wolves in my personal life as well as in my religious life. I was good with God. I was good with spirit. I wasn't exactly sure about some of this whole Jesus thing. So while I was there, I had the occasion to try to bring the animals back to health as well as the humans. And while I was there, I had the occasion to meet a sheep. Her name was Isabel. It was May. It was hot. The sheep needed to be sheared. I didn't know anything about shearing sheep. So I thought I would gather the farm hands, the paid handy people, the ones who run for the hills when things get tough. Little did I know how difficult shearing a sheep could be if the sheep didn't want to be sheared. I learned a lot about the vulnerable that day, and I learned about how vulnerable I really was. There's a long story about all the lessons that Isabel and all the other animals on that particular day taught me, but here's what I walked away from that experience with. I came to terms with how I had experienced in organized religion the wolves and the coyotes, and I had let that dissuade me from following the true Good Shepherd. The simplistic formula for success, say these words, produce this incantation, and all will be okay. When you say believe in Jesus Christ, just say you believe and it's okay, but I really had lost track of what that might mean. I met the coyotes and the wolves early, and I knew what they looked like. Sometimes, I looked for signs in the environment. I looked for signs in the animal teachings. I looked for signs all around, and sometimes I got it right, other times not so much. What I found there was a clear direction that pointed to the true Good Shepherd. And when I started embracing the true stories out of the gospel, the 3 years that I spent there, I was supposed to be there for 6 months, really taught me how to follow the true Good Shepherd and not look to humans for the answers. So leaving there, the path had a lot more on it, but it became crystal clear. We as humans have the opportunity and the ability to discern the Good Shepherd from otherwise lost sheep, the coyotes, the wolves, and the hired hands. The Creator God figured out thousands of years ago that we were going to need something a little bit more than a roadmap. And the person of Jesus of Nazareth came in. And he lived out the divine drama. He met the coyotes, he met the wolves, and he gave us the example of how to be in relationship with ourselves and with each other. So what do we do with all of this? First and foremost, how do you recognize the Good Shepherd in life? Like, how do you really see the Good Shepherd? The 23rd Psalm tells it. The Good Shepherd is going to direct us to rest in the green pastures. They're going to lead us beside the still waters, restore our soul, guide us in the right path, calm our fears in the valley of the shadow of death. It will spread a table before us in the presence of our enemies. Not, we will never have enemies, but we'll be given bounty when our enemies are there. The shepherd's going to lay down their life for us. They're going to know us through and through. And most importantly, when we quiet ourselves and we listen to the voice, we're going to know the shepherd's voice too. If we're following something, an ideology or a belief system or a person or anything else that gives us angst and anxiety and struggle, we might not be following the Good Shepherd. Maybe we need to recenter on the Good Shepherd. So how do we do that? I'll close with these 3 things. First and foremost, we have to believe this divine drama is true. We have to believe that Jesus really is the Good Shepherd and that all that the 23rd Psalm says is like real and it's available and we can find it, we can access it all the time, not every once in a while. It doesn't weave in and out. If it's weaving in and out, guess who's weaving in and out? It's not the 23rd Psalm, it might be us. Number 2, be still and know yourself. Know who you are. At any given point in time, we're sheep, we're everything but a shepherd. We're sheep, we could be a sheepdog, we could be lots of things. All clergy are ordained as deacons first. The deacon the sheepdog is the deacon of the church. All clergy were deacons first. We're all in that role. If you're a sheep, and if you're in the place of being a sheep, be the best sheep you can be. Because being a sheep follow each other. And when you can be the best sheep you can be and follow the good shepherd, you're taking other sheep along with you. If you're being called to be a sheepdog, it can be scary. Don't be afraid. Get out there and be a sheepdog and find out how God's calling you to be a sheepdog in the world, because there's a whole bunch of lost sheep out there that need us. Be willing to be who and what you are called to be. Realize that when we think that we are the shepherd, we have fallen victim to the coyote's tricks. Amen.